Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking the video out today. We have some absolutely incredible news for God of War Ragnarok. In fact, I'm even going to call it breaking news because it's very rare that we hear about sales numbers and data from Sony directly. In fact, the only time that Sony really feels comfortable talking about sales data is seemingly when one of their games breaks a record and sets a new one. And that is exactly what God of War Ragnarok did. Over on the official PlayStation Twitter account, they say congratulations to Sony Santa Monica for making God of War Ragnarok the fastest selling first party launch game in PlayStation history. And they have a little infographic right here where they reveal that 5.1 million copies sold through as of its debut week. So that means over 5.1 million copies were sold through to customers. That's important to emphasize in its first week. It says that it's the fastest selling first party launch title, and it's also setting a new franchise record for the God of War series, which isn't surprising. 5.1 million units is insane in a launch week. We need to emphasize that this is being done on only two platforms, on the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4. I really need to let that sink in for a moment because occasionally you do see some people who clearly don't understand how success is measured in the video game industry. They'll say, well, if there's 116 million PS4s and 22 or 23 million PS5s out there, then 5.1 million in 1 week really doesn't sound impressive. Make no mistake, that is a huge number for any video game publisher in the industry. There are video game publishers that would love to be seeing numbers like this on multi-platform titles. And the good news about this is that we are going to see God of War Ragnarok continue to go strong for quite some time. In fact, there's a chance it could go on to set another record and maybe become the best-selling PlayStation exclusive of all time. We'll have to see about that. I'm sure if it does achieve that, Sony will not hesitate to let everyone know about it. And I have to say, I was definitely wondering if we were going to hear anything about this because I saw just how much hype there was for Ragnarok, and the previous record holders for PlayStation, if you're curious, the last game that set a record was The Last of Us Part 2, where it sold 4 million copies in 3 days. And then below that, it was Spider-Man selling 3.3 million copies in 3 days. And then God of War 2018 sold 3.1 million copies in 3 days. Now, God of War Ragnarok, the only difference here is they're announcing the 5.1 million number in 5 days. So that's 2 more days. Some people were thinking maybe The Last of Us Part 2 achieved this as well. Unfortunately, that's not the case because as Sony states here, this is officially the fastest selling first party launch. And what that indicates is that no other first party title from PlayStation was able to get to 5 million units within the first 5 days. God of War Ragnarok is the first title to achieve something like this. And at this point, you really have to wonder what's next. Now, a lot of people might automatically think to themselves, well, Spider-Man 2 is coming next year, so surely Spider-Man 2 has the best chance of surpassing the 5.1 million. And I would agree with that. I think there's certainly a good chance that that can happen, but there's one key factor here we should acknowledge. God of War Ragnarok is a cross-gen title, so it did also release on PS4. Granted, it seems that the majority of the sales were on PlayStation 5. There's no doubt that it being available on PS4 helped it get to that 5.1 million within 5 days. Spider-Man 2 will not be launching on PS4, so it's not going to have that advantage. And hopefully Sony doesn't announce there's going to be a PS4 version. That would be incredibly disappointing, I think, to pretty much all PS5 owners. But the one advantage that Spider-Man 2 will have that God of War doesn't is by the time Spider-Man 2 comes out, say holiday of next year, it'll be launching at a time where there is no more PS5 shortage whatsoever, and millions more people will already have PS5s. So, if anything, Spider Man might actually have an advantage when it comes to being able to maybe take the number one spot. But this is something you absolutely love to see if you are a fan of AAA single player narrative driven games. I mean, believe me when I tell you that whether you're a fan of God of War or not, if you are a fan of single player games, if you are a fan of narrative driven games in the AAA space, this is a massive win for all of us because the thing about these games is that the cost of developing them is going up, obviously. And the developers feel the pressure and the publishers feel the pressure to make sure that these games can continue to be sustainable, but also continue to be bigger and better in any way that they can. And in my opinion, God of War Ragnarok is absolutely a bigger and better game than God of War 2018. However, I will also say they're both pretty much firing on all cylinders, but there's just something about Ragnarok that I just feel like there's a little bit more there. Maybe it's just the fact that it's conclusive, but still, this is massive. We want to see this happen. We want to see PlayStation Studios continue to set new records and continue to break new records because this means people are going out and they are supporting these games. They are supporting what we love. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the bottom line, this is what's necessary if we want to see PlayStation continue to reinvest into these experiences. If we want to see them put more money into single player games, if we want to see them continue to put an emphasis on single player games and not get away from that, but continue to double and triple down on it, this is what we have to see. And honestly, I love to see it. I was actually a little bit nervous there for a minute, knowing that Sony didn't announce the sales of the first 3 days. So I thought to myself, maybe this means it didn't surpass The Last of Us Part 2, and The Last of Us Part 2 is still going to be the record holder. Or maybe it didn't sell as well as God of War 2018. And don't get me wrong, it still would have been a success. It still would have sold really well, but it definitely would have been a little bit concerning if it wasn't able to at least surpass God of War 2018. But not only did it do that, it set a new record, and I'm very happy about this news. And I think if you're a God of War fan, one thing you can say for sure here is we're gonna be getting more God of War. There's no doubt about that. And if you are, as I said, a fan of just single player games, this is a big win for everyone. So long live AAA narrative driven single player games. That's going to do it for this video, though, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Be sure to leave it a like if you did, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.